The ban list. The one thing every Yu-Gi-Oh player consistently wants. Hello guys and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode we are talking about the ban list for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, and more specifically, the actual metagame, and whether or not Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel is in a healthy spot. Now obviously there are problems with the game, kind of, and with the balancing and stuff like that, and I want to talk about it. So this is a ban list prediction for what I expect Konami will be hitting in terms of preparing for Worlds and stuff like that, and kind of going into that. So there's that, keep that in mind. And real quick, I do want to talk about the fact that, well, actually, we'll get to that at the end, but I do want to talk about the metagame and where it is at the moment. Oh my gosh, took me way too long to get through that. But let's quickly talk about cards. Cards to be banned. What cards should be banned? Let's talk about them. So, here we have a whole bunch of cards that are not going to be banned. Yeah, I know, kind of weird. Why are they all here? Well, because I do want to talk about the fact that I genuinely think that Konami's not going to ban any cards in the next ban list, right? So, obviously, preparing for Worlds, they don't want to shake up too many things, but also, again, the metagame is kind of in a pretty decent spot. I don't think there's anything too egregious that specifically Konami is going to see. Obviously, I see many of things, as you can see right here. So obviously, like every single floodgate that just entirely stops games from happening. There are some that you're like, yeah, that makes sense. But like realistically, none of these should be at 1. They should be at 0. No one is enjoying a game. Well, actually, there are stun players that do exist. But even with that being said, yeah, all of these are problems, obviously. Now, there is one thing that I do want to talk about, which is Snake Eyes. Everyone is talking about Snake Eyes when it comes to ban lists and stuff like that. And I think it's something that we have genuinely not actually noticed in Master Duel, which is that Snake Eye honestly kind of isn't doing that hot. And the main reason for it is due to the fact that this card and Wanted and Bonfire are all limited, which makes the, well, not limited to 1, but like Bonfire's at 2, right? Which makes the deck significantly less consistent. Yes, if they're able to do their combo, they do the same thing, right? But due to the consistency hits, they're not able to do that nearly as much. And because of the way that the consistency hits have happened, it means that the deck is less or more susceptible to hand traps, right? Which means that 1 or 2 hand traps can oftentimes stop a Snake Eye board. Whereas in the past, it would be like, cool, well, I'm going to normal summon Snake Eye Ash. Cool, you're going to interact with that. Great, I still have all of my other plays and all of my other extenders to just ignore that entirely, right? Especially if you were to like Ash Blossom them or something. But now, they just have significantly less chance of that happening, which makes it more doable. Now, with that being said, I think Snake Eye is still insane with the amount of stuff that it can do, but I think that is more so a problem with things that are on the end board, right? Rather than necessarily the Snake Eyes cards itself. My biggest hit that I would like to see is Flomberg. I think banning Flomberg makes the most sense. It is a problem for on the field, it is a problem for when it hits the grave, it is a problem for just like in general, it's super easy to get to, it's just an inherent issue with Snake Eye, and if you ban that card, I genuinely think that Snake Eye is fair. Yeah. So that would be my hit. Obviously, I genuinely do not think a single card is going to be banned, and I don't think Snake Eye is going to receive a hit on the next ban list. Because again, Snake Eye isn't actually the most popular deck, nor is it the most, well, I'd still say it's probably the most powerful, but honestly, that's not really that bad, all things considered. Let's move on to the Limited. Now, when it comes to Limited, as you can see, there's not much to talk about. Again, I don't really think Konami is going to do much in terms of banning or limiting cards, with a few exceptions. Stun has been quite popular as of recently, and I do think if they are to hit stun, it's likely to be something like Pachycephalo, right? This is very, very easily the most problematic card. This and Jougin are likely to be hit in some capacity if they are to hit stun, which I think is way more of a problem in Master Duel than it is in either TCG or OCG, because the side deck does exist. You can side deck a lot of these cards that immediately out a lot of these boards, right? That just completely deal with it, right? And you can't really do that in Master Duel. It's just best of ones, so playing against this deck means that oftentimes, since you can't realistically prepare for stun, you just kind of lose, which is not very fun, not very interesting, right? So there's that. Now I have 2 premature hits that aren't actually to these specific cards. Well, I should say, Beatrice I do expect to go to 1. Reason being, in preparation for Fiendsmith, if you put it to 1, and then when you need to ban it later, it's already at 1 copy, and then people aren't, like, getting a whole bunch out of it. I would expect something like that to happen, because again, I do expect Beatrice to be banned because of Fiendsmith prior to us getting Fiendsmith. So there's that. Then, Trident Dragon is on here for Tenpai. I don't know when we're getting Tenpai, but if we are getting Tenpai anytime soon, I would expect not this card, but the Tenpai dragons in particular to be limited in some capacity. Whether that is the field spell, whether that is one of the dragons itself, whether that is whatever it may be, they're going to be either semi-limited or limited or something like that on release, as they have done with various different decks in the past as well. Now, they didn't do that with SnowiKs, and SnowiKs was tier 0. Well, kind of. It was tier 1. But the reason I think that they are more likely to do that with Tenpai is due to the fact that I think Tenpai in particular doesn't necessarily play well with Master Duel. So I do expect some sort of limitation to that. Because again, best of 1, if all of a sudden Tenpai comes out and we're playing in a best of 1 format and you can't prepare for your opponent to want to go second, hand trap you 4 times, and then do full combo through interaction, yeah, that's like not realistic, right? At least in a best of 3, as I mentioned previously, at least in a best of 3, you can side deck some things in, you can have those other games to potentially force the opponent to go first and stuff like that. So there's like some sort of balance there, at least with the Tenpai stuff. But, you know, in Master Duel, I genuinely think Tenpai could be tier 0 because of how insanely good it is when you don't know what your opponent is going to do, right? Now, granted, if it's tier 0, everyone kind of wants to go second, which makes it not nearly as powerful, but even then, you know, hey, I win the coin flip, I want to go first, cool, I'm going to go first. Now my opponent also gets what they want, and then they're going to, like, just clean through me. So, there's that. But yeah, that's basically all that I have to say. Yeah. Now, semi-limits are where I think things get rather interesting, for 2 reasons. 1, I think that they're more likely to bring back cards from limited slash banned to 1 or 2 or something like that. There aren't really any cards that I could think of that are like banned that I would expect them to put back to 1. Maybe like Glow Up Bulb, but isn't Glow Up Bulb? No, Glow Up Bulb is in fact banned, I still believe. Yeah, okay. So that one could go to 1, right? However, outside of that, I don't really think anything's going to 1. However, when it comes to semi-limitations, there are a few things I think Konami realistically could bring back to 2, and are likely to. Most notably, Trickstar Reincarnation. This is just kind of like a card on my radar that I'm like, yeah, realistically, this is something that could happen. Yeah, that's basically it. I don't know how consistent that would be, or if this would like cause any issues realistically. Obviously, this means that like Trap Trick would be able to utilize the reincarnation, but I don't think this matters. Maybe Konami is still scared of this because of the like droll reincarnation stuff that can happen, but I genuinely don't know if Konami actually cares. But they might. But yeah, I was just looking at like limited cards and I was like, yeah, this one they probably would bring back, especially since it's the UR as well. And then there are 2 others, which is Swap Frog and Nimble Beaver, back to 2. Because I think Sprite is kind of in like a spot where they're like, yeah, this could probably come back, and I don't think it would cause too many issues. So here we're going to give you some better summons, right? Some better like normal summons. So there's that. I don't think they would put back both of these. It'd probably be Swap Frog over Nimble Weaver, but maybe one or the other, right? Honestly, still, to this day, these are some of the weirdest hits that they've done. Wild. The cards that are on the ban list because of Elf. Crazy. And then the ones that I actually think are realistically going to happen are Dark Beckoning Beast or Opening. One or the other. Maybe both. But the reason I say this is because Yubel is the most played deck. It is a deck that you see a lot at the top levels, and it's probably the most common deck right now. Right, and the reason for that is because, one, it's new, but two, it's pretty much just as good as SnowiKs. Maybe not the exact same. I think it's a little bit weaker, especially without the Fiendsmith stuff, but for the most part, it's pretty much on par, right? Especially due to the fact that it's so consistent, having not had a consistency hit, which Konami loves to do in the OCG and in Master Duel. So, of course, these are the hits that I'm expecting, because, one, they're not Yubel, and two, this is also why I think some of the Sprite cards are going to come off. Sprite has been using these cards with Yubel to make Sprite fairly decent. And so because of that, I think that the some of the Sprite cards are going to come off, and then these cards are going to potentially go onto the ban list, or at 2. So there's that. Obviously, Yubel can't really receive any, like, real hits, right? Having all of the... I mean... First of all, they're still, like, in the most recent pack. Maybe not most... I don't think it's most recent. I think there was another... Yeah, there was the Voice of Voice pack. Anyway, they're still in the shop, right? And then on top of that, there's not really anything else that they would hit. Like, maybe they hit, like, Spirit of Yubel, or maybe they would hit, like, Phantom. Realistically, they should limit Phantom. It doesn't really make sense to have it at 3. This card's insane. So, there's that. But, of course, 2 new. So, there you go. And now we have some unlimits. Again, I'm not really too certain on a lot of these. These are really... I am really struggling to think of anything that Konami is realistically going to do, right? I can think of a few things, but for the most part, I think the game is pretty much fine. And I think Konami thinks that as well. Or I should say, Konami thinks that the game is fine. Obviously, I have major issues with it. Mostly around the roach called by Floodgates. Those 3 things. And Kashira. I just don't like Kashira. Those cards are stupid. But besides that, I really don't see Konami doing much in terms of a ban list. However, there are a few cards on here that I do think are likely to change. Water Enchantress, I believe now that would put everything back to 3, and honestly, not going to change much. Trickstar Light Stage, yeah, it's a UR. It's probably going to come off. Change of Heart as well, likely to go to 3. I think it just went to 3 on the TCG ban list, if I'm not mistaken. Or the OCG ban list or something like that. I think it's at 3 in one of the games. I couldn't tell you exactly which one. Or in one of the formats, I should say. So there's that. And then, you know, again, maybe a Sprite card, right? If it's not something like a Swap Frog or a Nimble Beaver. Seeing as how we just got Jet back, this is kind of where, like, my head is at. And again, with limitations to some of the other stuff that Sprite has been using, potentially we get more of the Sprite stuff back. So, again, that's kind of where my head is at. And then Fusion Destiny as well was just something I saw and was like, oh, this could probably go to 3. Konami probably wouldn't care. I don't think, like, anyone has been using DPE or Verte or anything like that. And I think an extra copy of Fusion Destiny isn't going to change anything. So there's that. Now, I do want to quickly talk about the actual metagame. Alright, so here I have the Master Duel meta website pulled up, and we're looking at the top decks, and as you can see here, Yubel is the most popular. This doesn't necessarily mean that, in my mind, it's the best. I know it says Tier 1 right next to it, and there's no other Tier 1 decks. That is just according to the tournaments, which doesn't really have any sway on how Master Duel actually works. So, in my mind, while it is Tier 1, I don't think it's Soul Tier 1. I think, you know, Snake Eye Fire King is still up there. I think Tier Limit's up there, etc. But as you can see, there's actually a lot of decks that are up here, right? Yubel definitely has the most, but it's also the newest, which brings up the amount of people playing it quite significantly, as you can see here with Voice's Voice, right? 37, it's brand new, it just came out, a whole bunch of people are still playing it, so yeah, that's obviously another very popular deck, right? Cool, great. But then there's a ton of other decks, right? Stun is, I think, the biggest issue that I think Konami is likely to even take a look at. But other than that, are you going to hit Tier Element? Not likely, and it's not like it's really that big of a problem. Like, I mean, for the most part, I think it's fine. I don't think there's anything too particularly problematic about Tier Element. Yeah, I don't know. Like, Would you hit Tearlament? Would you hit Branded? They just did, right? They hit the Gimmick Puppet lock, but now you can do like Jowgen stuff, so maybe you ban Jowgen, and then maybe you ban the Raw's Disciple. Or maybe they actually do ban Lubellion, the Sanctifier Dragon, but not likely, right? Like, are they really going to do that? No. Ice Barrier's new, right? Centurion is totally fair and balanced, and they're not going to do anything with. Infernoble Knight, they're not going to hit. Flunder, they're not going to touch. Labyrinth, what are they going to hit in Labyrinth, right? Like, Floodgate? Cool, great, yeah. What else is in Labyrinth that they're realistically going to hit? They're not going to hit the Furnitures again. That wouldn't make any sense. Like, the problem cards are very clearly the Floodgates. So they would, if they were to hit something like Labyrinth, they would probably be something like Skill Drain. Right? Great. Of course. Right? Raid Raptor's new, Math Mech, still a good deck. But, like, you can also see there's a lot of playable decks. Right? Like, out of Yubel, Voiceless Voice, Fire King Snake-Eye, Branded, Tearlament, Labyrinth, Math Mech, Centurion, Flunder, even, Rescue Ace, Snake Eyes, Horus, Sprite, Salamangreat? I'll include Salamangreat in there. What is that? 14 decks, I think, that are all playable and very competent and absolutely can help you climb to Master 1 easily, right? And then on top of that, you have a whole bunch of things like right below that that are also just as powerful, like Kashtira and Dinos and Rika and Zodiac and Exosister and Manadium and Makonko and... Oh, I forgot to mention Pearly. Pearly's a tier 1 deck. Yeah, Pearly's insane, by the way. Just don't play it if you're bad. Smile. But, like, again, the metagame overall is fairly good, right? Yeah, there are problems. Everyone talks about Maxi, everyone talks about Floodgates, everyone talks about this, that, or the other thing. My personal my personal card that I want to see banned the most is Called by the Grave. I cannot stand that card. It does way too much, and it basically nullifies the fact that hand traps exist. Because it just, yeah, why is that there? Yeah, that's my problem. But even without that, it's like, there's not really anything from any of these decks that you're realistically going to hit, and honestly, the metagame has been fine. Yeah. There's a lot of good decks out there, right? You have control decks like Labyrinth or, I don't know, Flu maybe, I guess? That you could call Flu a control deck, right? You have like mid-range decks like Voiceless Voice or Centurion or Rescue Ace, kind of Rescue Ace. I don't know, Tri-Brigade exists. You could play Tri-Brigade as a mid-range deck. And then you have like a whole bunch of like combo decks that are still very good. I guess you could say like Fire King Snake-Eye is also technically mid-range. You could say Tearlament is technically mid-range. You could say Branded is technically mid-range. So there's that. But then you have like the hard combo decks like Raid Raptor or Infernoble or Math Mech or Resonator and stuff like that. So there's still like a lot of options available, right? Saying Resonator is a combo deck just hurt my brain. But I mean, the point is, there's a lot of different decks that you can play. There's a lot of different styles that you can play. Well, besides Control. Control is just non-existent, basically. Konami really doesn't like Control, which is tragic. But, I mean, for the most part, I think that the metagame is healthy. I think that it's fine in Master Duel. And going into Worlds, I don't think there's anything that realistically needs to change. If they're going to release a pack, it's probably not going to be anything too impactful. Maybe 10 pie, but probably not. But yeah, that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any thoughts, let me know down below. Do you agree with what is likely to be banned? Do you not agree? Do you think that there is a significant thing that I am missing that needs to change with the current metagame? Obviously, take into account, like, yeah, if you're going to hit UL, note that, like, UL is brand new. But anyway, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye. Shout out to the Frost Guard, my members. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I hope you enjoy the content.